Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Good morning, my friends. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning here at the studios of Jim Hinckley's America. Located in Kingman, Arizona, within spitting distance of legendary Route 66. Definitely starting to feel a tad bit like summer out there. We are going to be pushing close to 100 today. I am really excited about today's program. We're going to be talking with Carl Norloff about S&H green stamps. And this is a blast from the past. This is going back to my childhood. And it's almost a forgotten chapter. So I'm really excited about this. Hey, Carl, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, gosh. Every day is good. Some are just better than others.
Well, I'm here with my coffee and ready to go.
Oh, great. S&H green stamps. I got to tell you, when you reached out to me on this, I'm embarrassed to say this, but this is one of those things, a childhood memory that just kind of fades, and pretty soon you've almost forgotten about it. And since you brought this back to my attention, I've been delving a little deeper into this, and I am so glad to hear that you're reviving this.
Yeah, I mean, we're excited to carry on the legacy of what S&H meant to so many back in the day. Like you said, I mean, it's almost a forgotten thing, but ironically, most anybody around 60 years older and older, they as soon as they hear S&H green stamps, this brings them back in time, to some fond memories. It's amazing how many stories we hear from people about. I remember sticking those in the book with, for my grandmother, my mother, whatever. Generations of people have experienced S&H green stamps.
Yeah, it's funny how these things can slip away from us. I was talking to Stephanie Stuckey a while back, and she's attempting to revive that family brand. And that's another one. I just, gosh, that was such a big part of life. But S&H green stamps, gosh, at one point, if I recall correctly, wasn't that one of the largest, catalogs in the world?
It was, as a matter of fact, it printed more catalogs than Sears at one point. And but over 30 million families collected green stamps from around 90,000 merchants. And the unbelievable thing is that over $10 billion worth of merchandise was purchased with S&H green stamp. I mean, that just is mind-boggling to me. I mean, we're talking about the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So what that 10 billion in merchandise, what that means, or what the value of that today, it's just incredible.
How did that work? Was that like an affiliate program that S&H had with businesses, or?
Businesses bought stamps from Sperry and Hutchinson, S&H, and they handed those out to their customers. So it was more of like it's a reward system. They bought their stamps, customers shopped, and when they shopped, they got 10 stamps per dollar spent, and that's how it worked. It was pretty straightforward.
This is when for us older folks, and I'm almost 70. From us older folks, we remember, of course, licking the stamps endlessly. It seemed like for Ma's book, but so we think of this in terms of the era of I like Ike buttons and tail fins, but this is actually a pretty darned old company, isn't
Yeah,
it? I mean,
six.
it has a Michigan connection.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the company was founded in 1896, so it's got a long history.
Yeah. Gosh, did they start a Sperry? Let's start from the beginning. What is S&H to start with?
S&H is the name of the founders, Sperry and Hutchinson. Those are the two founders of the company, and again, founded in 1896.
Yeah. Was this started as a? It wasn't started as a catalog redemption situation, was it? It was.
Not initially. Initially, it was actually a physical store, and which they retained. I mean, at its height, they had about 600 redemption centers around the country.
What was the 50s, the 60s? That was kind of the peak
It was the
for
peak,
this.
70s. That's when it really hit the sweet spot. They printed in the post office and more catalogs and Sears. It was quite the thing. I mean, everybody was in on it. I mean, celebrities and sports figures. Chris Everett played in her first tournament. It was an S&H Green Stamp tennis tournament championship.
Oh my! This is a quite the American story, and that's what I try to do here is share America's story with help from interesting people such as yourself. This is what they had a physical store, but when did the catalog and the stamps start?
Well, the stamp started from the beginning. In
Okay.
terms for when the first store opened up in the 1800s,
Hmm.
1896. So and it just grew from there.
I was kind of surprised this started in Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Yeah,
I've got quite a family connection to Michigan. My father's family is all rooted in the Jackson area, which is just down the road from Ypsilanti.
yeah, it's quite the story. You know how the whole company evolved and how it became so successful, and the families that ran it. Um, we'll talk more when we get there about the uh, relaunch of S&H Green Stamps in 1999 as S&H Green Points by Walter Beinecke, who is a great grandson of the founders of the company, the Sperry family.
Oh, so uh, the company reached its high point in the 70s. What led to its uh, fading, shall we say?
A couple of things. One was consumer shopping behavior changed. That the time of people saving up for something, licking the stamps, putting the books, saving the books for months to get something, kind of faded. And the other was uh, the want for businesses. They wanted their own loyalty programs, their own branded. They didn't want to have, S&H Green Stamps is a coalition program, which means that businesses work together to promote, the rewards program. So as a coalition, all these businesses band together, supermarkets, gas stations, frequently visited places, and the larger companies, the bigger brands, didn't like that. They wanted their own control over their own programs. So it was that cost of merchandise for the catalog increase, which means saving more stamps, more time, and that just lost favor with the public.
Yeah, yeah. People started going. Gosh, I don't know what happened to it starting really in the 80s. There's so many things. We started just going for a more generic world, and we started seeming to be in too much of a hurry. We became a country, a society that was well, in a hurry to get nowhere.
And the
Uh,
patience of the discretionary income, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s wasn't so great. So, I mean, for someone to shop for staple items like food and gas, be able to save up and get a new toaster, I mean, that was really cool. But today it's like, you know what? I'll go on Amazon, I'll order it, get, through Prime and get it tomorrow.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so
we don't have the patience, you know. And you mentioned getting things. I remember as a kid gas stations. You know, yeah, with every fill up, you would get this week it would be a cup and saucer, next week a plate, And so it built up a loyalty program. So you were constantly buying your gas at the station so your wife could get a full set of dishes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Margaret's with us from East Lansing, Michigan. She said her father's pharmacy had S&H stamps. She said it was a pretty big deal for them.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing the impact that for businesses that it had. The other thing that happened in terms of the decline of the program was that supermarkets said, well, these businesses, supermarkets, whatnot, had low margins. So, for them spending money on green stamps, they'd rather just discount their prices and
Mm.
but the impact of businesses while it was at its popular peak was just amazing.
Yeah. I can clearly remember the catalogs, and I like I say I don't know if they're fond memories, but it seems like I spent hours on Saturday licking stamps for my mom's book. I'm not sure how fond of a memory that is, but it's definitely a memory.
Me too. I mean, I think every household in America had a junk drawer in the kitchen, and that's where our stamps went, and that was my job to lick and stick. And I remember distinctly going to a redemption center and stamps. But
Yeah.
it's funny the stories that we hear from people that had life changing, experiences with green stamps. As an example, I was contacted by a gentleman who licked and stick the stamps in the book. He was, they looked at the catalog and he dreamed of getting a bike radio. And he saved and saved those stamps. And finally, he went to the redemption center to get his bike radio, and they didn't have it. And he was so disappointed. And his father talked him into getting a photography set, the development of film. So he got that, and he went on to be a renowned award-winning photographer through high school, yearbook, and college. Went on to become just, like I said, an award-winning photographer. And I thought to myself, and he goes, I wonder what happened if I ended up getting that bike radio. He never may become an award-winning photographer. And amazing.
That's a testimony to the persuasive power of his father and to the magic of S&H green stamps.
Exactly.
It would be interesting to collect those stories.
What
Put out the word that you're asking for people to share their stories,
now?
and
We get stories every day. I got a story from a woman who, in her backyard, she has a garden cart that she got with her green stamps in the 50s, and it's still there. Plants sitting on top of it. But we hear those every day. Um, it's funny. We were at a farmer's market, and one of the merchants was giving green stamps, and we were just visiting with them, and people walk by, and it's funny. Anybody, old, young kids don't know, or younger people don't know what green stamps are, but people walk by. Hundreds of people walk by the booth. I got my first set of dishes from green stamps. It's like you hear them, uh, every day. And another funny thing is we were doing a pilot in a pet store, and the kids behind the counter, 18, 19-year-old kids, um, uh, they said people would come in and they would spend 20 minutes telling these kids about their green stamp experiences, what they got with their green stamps, and they thought it was hilarious. So yeah, lots of memories.
gosh, no, this was a mail. If you didn't have a redemption center somewhere close, this was also mail order, correct?
Yeah, yeah, they had the catalog, and you can call up and order through the catalog.
There was a redemption center for a while when I was real young, and these are early memories. We had a redemption center there in Port Huron, Michigan, and I do remember that. I don't remember what much else about it, but I do remember the store. And yeah, I could just imagine, especially rural families, and like you mentioned, the 60s and 70s, people who come of age in the Great Depression and then started a family after the war. I can imagine the power of having something like S&H green stamps for their family.
But yeah, Yeah, I mean, I've again going back to stories. I've heard of a family that someone was telling me that they would not have had Christmas if it wasn't for us. It's just real powerful stuff. But you're right. I mean, to have a new toaster or the latest blender or whatever back in the day, that was a big deal. And most people that couldn't afford it, they loved the stamp.
Uh, was S&H green stamps kind of a it's zenith, of course, like we said, was in the 60s and 70s, but was this a big thing during the Depression?
I'm not sure. I would imagine it would have been. I mean, again, just the ability to get rewarded for purchase you make anyway, like going to the grocery store. I would imagine that I think it just took time to migrate across the country, but I suspect that it was really popular then.
What year did we talked about the store being established in Ypsilanti in 1896? When did they launch the stamp program, the catalog program?
In 1896
They started right from the beginning with that.
was the whole thing.
That's a real visionary. I wonder what was taking place at that time, because that's right around when Sears and Roebuck ideas started to come together, and the same with Montgomery Ward. Yeah, I know that in the 18 or mid 1890s, Montgomery Ward was toying with the idea of catalog sales, and there was Galloway Tractors too. I just discovered based out of Iowa, I believe. They started a farm supply catalog based around their tractors, just about that same time period, 1898, 1899. So it's kind of interesting that these ideas were germinating. Hmm.
Yeah. Well, that was the time. The innovation, in terms of retail was just amazing. Late
Uh,
1800s.
Something that just popped into my head, that might have been tied into this catalog sales. This is about just a few years before, or right around the period when the federal government started investing in what they called rural mail routes. Uh, because before this, the rural people had to go to town to get their mail. And this was right around when they started the rural mail routes. Denny Gibson's joined us, and he may have some input on that. But it seems to me that was right around when they started establishing rural mail routes. So that could have been a catalyst as well.
Absolutely.
So, how did you get pulled into the green stamp story, may I ask?
Well, in 2000, I was hired. It was a startup. The transition from green stamps. Walter Beinecke, the great grandson of the founder, acquired the company back from a holding company and started S&H Greenpoints. And I was hired to. I'm a tech guy. My teams were responsible for building the online catalog and the redemption and earning capabilities of the program. And but it's funny because I was out in California and enjoying myself. And I got a call from a recruiter saying, we have an opening with S&H Green Points, formerly S&H Green Stamps. And as soon as I heard that, boom, my mind went right back to my childhood and said, "Yep, I'm in." So I flew out and interviewed, and was fortunate enough to join this effort to relaunch as S&H Green Points. And it was an amazing journey. And with the establishment of the company, we started out there probably weren't more than 10 people. I grew to 40, moved into a new office in Salem, Massachusetts, and quickly scaled to about 8 million consumers using the program, primarily focused on supermarkets. But yeah, that's how I got involved. I was hired to manage and implement the technology to bring it online. And we were doing stuff, in 1990 or 2000 online in terms of web development and e-commerce that nobody was doing. So it was really a fun time for us.
S&H Green Stamps was in a kind of almost, well, it wasn't deceased, but it was in a holding company. It wasn't really an active enterprise when they started the point system. Was correct?
There were still some companies giving stamps. I mean, I think there was at the time there was about 300 stamps still outstanding, and still are actually. Now, I say that, but in years, but when the company ceased operations in in the early '80s, $300 million worth of stamps were outstanding, and and when greenpoints took over, you were actually able to turn in those stamps for for money or for a gift card or whatever.
It's now it's totally digital, correct? No longer doing the physical stamps.
Yeah, it'd be great to do that. Although, I don't know about the younger generations, but certainly the older, we hear that. Why can't you give today? It's just not economical. If you think about the number of merchants out there and the number of customers they have, we're talking printing billions of stamps, and
Yeah,
that would be kind of difficult. But yeah, it's completely
yeah.
digital.
Okay. Yeah, it's everything has changed. It wouldn't be a it would be fun, but it would not be a profitable business model to try to go back to catalogs and stamps.
The stamps, back currency, they printed those things under 24-hour guard. I mean, they
Oh,
physically had a monitor, and they were real serious about fraud and crime. So so yeah, I mean, it was a big deal to safeguard the stamp itself. I mean, the way they printed them, the process of the way they printed the numbers that were put on them, it was all very sophisticated at the time, and to replicate that today would be just monumental.
yeah. Yeah, it just would not be a good business model. With the rise, there's such a Route 66 is the center point of this, but there is a real rise in road trip inspired nostalgia sweeping the country right now. And with the Route 66 Centennial coming up, this seems like an ideal time to put S&H back on the map. I think this would be just an ideal time.
We're trying to coordinate that. We've been working with the Illinois Byway organization and Casey Claypool, who's the director. We've had a number of
Yes.
conversations with her, and exactly that, trying to coordinate the launch of this from a Route 66 perspective. I think it would be awesome because you're right, from a nostalgia perspective, the time frame fits, and I think and if you take a look at the road warriors out there, um, we see that the RVers and road trippers, they are of the age that remember green stamps. Uh,
Well, it's surprising too. Route 66 is a unique animal, and you've got to be about my age to have a connection, just like with green stamps. You've got to have a connection to Route 66 when it was Route 66. And yet we have a younger generation that is just deeply involved. Reese Martin and his wife Sam in Oklahoma come to mind. They're probably 40s. He's the president of the Oklahoma Route 66 Association. His wife is deeply involved in the city of Tulsa Route 66 Centennial projects. Uh, so yeah, I really can see this being tied together. And people, it's really funny with Route 66. Yes, there is a Route 66 navigation app, but one of the most popular guides for Route 66 is a throwback to the 1950s published by Jerry McClanahan. It's a it's a ring bound binder with hand drawn maps. And so I think this would fit in just nicely.
yeah, we're excited. We were all in. I mean, we talked to Casey back in February of last year, and trying to somehow get involved with that. It would be amazing and certainly appropriate.
I definitely have ideas. We'll have to. I'll have to send you an email because I get wrapped up in a lot of this. Uh, Casey is my gosh. I get tired just listening to the things that she's doing.
I mean,
She's a dynamo.
she's involved in everything in Gerard. Got
Yeah,
Doc off 66. She's got the chamber she works with and the nonprofits Route 66. She's into everything. Amazing
yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah. Doc's off 66. I had the privilege of stopping there and visiting with Casey a year ago and having lunch. And that is truly phenomenal. That's a monument to hoarders, and we're grateful. The short version, and I'm sure she's told you, and I imagine there's some S&H connection here too. The people who own that, it was like a 120-year old pharmacy, and they never threw any display or anything away. When the new one came out, they took the old one upstairs and stored it. And yeah, it's gosh, astounding what's in that place. Besides
Yeah,
good food.
exactly. And and they do give green stamps. So that's a good thing.
Yes, indeed. I noticed Docs was on your list of your directory.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the road trips. Before I decided to go down this path and reviving the brand, you had mentioned Stephanie Stuckey. We basically started around the same time.
Uh
Two
huh.
distance, but I wrapped an RV announcing the rebirth of S&H Green Stamps and Stuckies. And we traversed the country 3 times, and we met with hundreds of businesses and talked to all kinds of people. And it was amazing how, even from a small business perspective, the brand still resonated. And it was that really got me excited about, what, maybe we can do this. And but yeah, I'm sitting, but we spent months on the road, just traveling around and promoting everything, and gave out some Stuckey's pecan log rolls and hats and had some fun doing it. So, but Stephanie's an amazing person. I don't know how. Talk about Casey. Talk about state. Uh,
Oh my gosh, Stephanie. I boy, moss doesn't grow under her feet for sure.
does it? I mean, she's all over the place. I mean, she's definitely the face of the brand for sure. But they're doing well. Hopefully they continue to grow and do their thing.
Well, likewise with you, and for people, your website is real simple, mygreenstamps.com. And you've got a great section there on the history as well as the directory and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we're ready. I mean, our model's a little bit different. Back in the day, we talked about frequently visited merchants, supermarkets, gas stations, drugstores. Um, what we're focused on really in the core of our mission is to support local Main Street businesses, mom and pops, even
Hmm.
the ones that are less frequented. If you have a boutique on Main Street that you may not have a high volume of visitors, it doesn't matter. You can be part of the program, still get value, and local causes as well. I mean, how do we support? I mean, we talked to so many small businesses that you know, not that they were complaining, but they were lamenting about the fact that nonprofits, whether it's the schools or the Boy Scouts or whatever, come in and they ask for donations, and some months we give out more in donations than we actually make. And I brains like, how can we fix this? And my wife is a small business owner, and my office was upstairs in Massachusetts from her office, and you just see how difficult it is for mom and pops that are wearing so many hats. I mean, how do I get exposure? How do I increase business? How do I get the word out? And it's hard. I mean,
Hmm.
90% of small business owners don't have the time, the budget, or the expertise to really leverage everything. I mean, between all the social sites and now you got artificial intelligence. I mean, it's just how do you handle it all?
Yeah.
So to create something that was one simple and handing out stamps as a reward is one thing, but we've come up with a new model that really brings us into this time period, which is uh, how can we not only provide a reward for a customer, but how can we add value to the business in addition to the rewards program, which means, how can a business actually make money from this rewards program and local causes? So we're about to announce a transition to um, cryptocurrency. And S&H Green Stamps for local businesses and nonprofits will actually be a currency that they can trade in for cash. And so now, not only do they get the program for free, but they can actually make money on top of that. And and for us older folks that what the heck is cryptocurrency? Doesn't matter. It's totally transparent. Need to know anything about cryptocurrency. You click a button, you get your money, you're done. But for the reward side of it, it remains the same. You shop at a store, you tap your mobile app, the S&H mobile app to a card, you get your stamp, you go online and buy stuff. So that remains the same, simple. There's no technology integration with point of sale or anything like that. It's just, you can implement the program in 15 minutes and it's done. But what's exciting to me is, how do we help local small businesses? They need help.
This is one of the many reasons why I was excited to talk with you this morning, because you've created a business model here, very much like the original program, with an emphasis on building a sense of community,
Yes.
supporting the communities. And it starts at the grassroots. It's the small business owners, the small shop owners. That's the core of any community. And what you've done here is help foster development of that sense of community. And that's crucial.
Right. We want to create community equity, as a way of bringing everybody together. The whole idea of connecting people, businesses, and local causes together around a reward system where everybody wins. It's so exciting to me. And you're right. If you think about how do I define what a community is? A community is made up of people, businesses, and local causes. There's nothing else, right? I mean, that's the community, and that's our focus. I mean, we're so excited about, and it's hard because many small businesses, when they hear rewards programs, they thought, well, geez, I just have to give stuff away. So why would I do that? Oh, I have a low volume business, so I don't need a rewards program. But so that the mentality of that is what we need to change, and which has been difficult. But it
Yes.
all comes down to, having one business on the program in a community doesn't work. We need 10, 20 businesses in the community, and then the program just takes off because it's a coalition program. Businesses and local causes working together to support the community.
Well, this is why I think Route 66, and like I say, I'm not myopic. I know there's tremendous dynamic small towns all over the country. But Route 66, Michael Wallace described it as a linear community. It's I've heard it described as America's longest small town. And Route 66 is so ideally suited for this because there is such a sense of community. And I'm sure Casey's bent your ear on this quite a lot, but there is such a sense of community uh, along the Route 66 corridor that this is ideally suited. And
Right. And
I think it can be brought to a lot of small towns.
yeah, I mean, and that's again, I mean, that was the value back in the day, small towns, rural, you know. But the cool thing about Route 66 is, aside from, the nostalgia is there, the community is there because, I mean, obviously, the people that are into Route 66, I mean, it's a community. There's no doubt. But what's more amazing is the people that, traverse Route 66 are from all over the world, and that's kind of cool. You got people, that are doing their road trips, and they could be from anywhere in the country, and the stories and the experiences that they experience, on their trip through Route 66. I mean, they just, it's everywhere. I don't
Ah,
know Food Magazine, uh, but they do a great job in telling the stories of the merchants and stuff on Route 66 as well as you. And there's so many, talking about community from all angles. You got the people that support it, the nonprofits, then the travelers. I mean, what a community that is, right?
yes, yes. It's short notice, and I see you're based in Utah, but a couple of weeks I'll be attending the AAA Route 66 Road Fest. I'll have to get you information on this perhaps for next year. But this is an amazing event, and it would be ideally suited for uh, introducing a new generation to S&H green stamps.
Yeah, that would
It's,
be wonderful. Any the word out and get people excited by the program and educate the younger audience about what it's not the whole idea of getting rewards program, getting stamps. I mean, there's a million rewards programs out there, but if you tie it to what it meant to so many back in the day, the
Yeah.
history, amazing.
And I think it would work very well, not just in the Route 66 community, but again, because the Route 66 community is so tight, the Route 66 passport, Mother Road Route 66 passport, is really an old fashioned throwback, and I'm surprised by the popularity. It's a physical, customizable souvenir with advertisements, information about the different businesses, but it was conceived as a means to draw people into visitor centers in communities and let the visitor center introduce the traveler to their community. And they collect stamps along the way, and the visitor centers hand out small souvenirs, a keychain or something of this nature. And the two things that are amazing to me about this is that it's such an old fashioned idea and that has become so popular with families. 10-year-olds love this. And the fact that it was developed by a company in Bratislava, Slovakia, that's pretty astounding.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that. I stumbled upon an S&H green stamp. This was, I'm sure they have Idaho and California, but they were actually a traveler's guide, similar to the passport program that you're talking about that they had back in the 50s. And you stop at a travel center and you get one of these S&H green stamp guides, and it showed you all the the route and all the destinations and stuff. It was pretty interesting. But yeah, it's amazing.
I had no idea that S&H Green Stamps was involved in that aspect of travel. I,
Oh yeah.
I, I did I did not know that.
um, they develop these tourist maps, and with the same thing within this hard copy, tour, they had this kind of a map with the directions and advertisements in there from their local, mostly gas stations or travel centers, and but yeah, that was a big deal, and back in the they were into everything, and which is amazing. I mean, there was not one facet of it was a cultural icon. There wasn't any aspect of community that they weren't involved in at their peak.
Gosh, I have a sense that it's if that you're a very busy person. Your hands are full, but I see an S&H Green Stamp museum in the future.
Well, it's fun.
Uh,
Stamps went through it went from green stamps to green points, a wildly successful launch. Then what happened is they sold themselves to a competitor that went bankrupt after a year, and then the company was split up. And the company that ultimately ended up with the brand has a treasure trove of paraphernalia, from S&H Green Stamps. And they reached out to me and said, "We're closing an office in Florida. Would you like all this stuff?" And I said, "Absolutely." They said, "Okay, well, we have to check with the New York office to see if we can do that." And they did, and the New York office said, "Nope, we're going to keep it." But that would have been
oh,
a perfect way to establish, uh,
we'll have
with
to help. We'll have to help you pursue that because I think that would be a tremendous thing. I'm so glad they didn't throw that out. A lot of so many of these companies, kind of off topic here a tad bit, but I wrote a book a while back on the Checker Cab Manufacturing Company out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. And when David Markin took over control of the company, and shortly after they ceased production of taxi cabs, they continued in business for a while, but they ceased manufacturing taxis by 1982. A couple of the employees approached them for the archives, and the company refused. They destroyed everything, blueprints, photographs, everything. They got rid of it all. So it's wonderful that at least it's been saved.
Well, there's a lot of there, but and I wish I would have known better, but I didn't have a clue. But when they uh, in the original of S&H, and they asked if anybody wanted anything, and I got a mahogany executive desk that I took um, their top and all that, but they had full of S&H dishes and all this stuff, and it was all thrown away. And I
Oh,
wish I would have known. This is all original stuff. That they had,
yeah.
but S&H Green Stamp China and all these cool things that they gave away back in the day. Little we give green stamp signs and some of the the original big signs that stores put out, and they fetch $400 or $500 a pop. I mean they're in demand for sure.
Well, this would be a great way to also market what the S&H green stamps for the modern generation is to put out the word that you're looking for stories as well as memorabilia,
Yeah,
and use spark the interest. And who knows what comes when start shaking the trees? What would come up?
yeah,
Ah,
that's a great idea. And there's so many out there. So many stories. I just
oh
got an
yes.
email from a woman who said that uh, her, don't quote me on this, I'm probably not accurate from memory, but it was an aunt or someone that passed away, a beautiful necklace that she got with S&H green stamps, and they lost it. And in her memory, they want to recreate it. And she asked if I could find the catalog that had that in it so that she could see a picture of it. And unfortunately, but uh, but that's kind of an incredible story right there.
If you would like, when I publish this afternoon, I will of course include your website link. But I'll also, if you'd like, I'll put in asking people to contact you if they want to share an S&H green stamp story.
Absolutely, they could. There's a contact on the web. Love to hear,
All right,
love to hear stories.
great. Maybe we can get something going. And also, I talked to Stephanie again, like saying I'm going to do a blog post for the Jim Hinckley's America website about some of these forgotten companies that are making a comeback. Stuckey's, S&H, and there's a couple others that are peripheral that people are talking about bringing back, and I'm curious to see what will happen with.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. Just it's a shame to see some of these iconic brands just disappear. Like Howard Johnson's and things that you remember from the childhood. Woolworths.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
going to the kid and they had a little diner in there. You could get lunch and you know that
Well, even things like Kmart,
yeah,
gone. Sears
on
and Roebuck.
appointment. Oh,
Yeah.
that one might get right there. I don't know, but it's funny. One of the last remaining Kmart's here in southern Utah um, is right across the street from the RV park that I'm in, and it's gone, but the sign's still there. It's a huge Super Kmart sign. But that was the last one in Utah that now is gone.
It's so many of these things, that fall by the wayside, and it's easy. Anyway, automotive companies, Packard, Studebaker, they fall by the wayside, and it's funny how just in less than a generation they can almost be forgotten.
Yeah,
And yet they were such an important part of our lives as they were such an important part of our personal lives as well as our national fabric.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Of history is a good thing. I mean, you look at kids today, they can't tell time because they don't know how to, an analog
Yeah.
clock. Uh, I was asking someone, be here at 10:15, and they said, "What? What does that mean?" you know, and so things like the the dial telephone, and obviously things are better today. We have phones and everything, but
It's-
idea.
Some things are better, but
Yeah.
other things, if we really want to confound, we don't need to have a cryptologist or anything coming up with special codes. Uh, all we got to do is write something in cursive and tell somebody the only way they can get to it is with a standard transmission automobile, and we're done.
What's
Uh,
sad, the transit were the fact, you know, gave out stamps. It was what the company meant and the mission of all these the Stuckies. It was all about the people. It was all about community. It was all about
yes,
the story behind all of these iconic brands that you just don't see anymore. And that's kind of the biggest loss, I think. Is that you've got just about every one of these iconic brands just had it was so much more than just a product, and that's what's lost. That's what you don't want to lose, and that's why, when you talk about the Route 66 coming up next year, the big celebration. I mean, we need to educate people about not just the product, but what's behind it, the people behind it, and what it meant to the community and all that.
yeah, exactly right. I mean, obviously, these companies had an eye on profit. I mean, as much as we enjoy doing what we do and building a sense of community, profit is crucial. But it wasn't the end all for these companies. These companies were focused on providing a service that built a community, that strengthened communities. And that you're right, that's something we have gotten away from.
And certainly profits, obviously they became successful, and really what drove the profit were the people, right? The
Yes.
people that provide it, whether it's customer service or the product or the meaning or the support of community. People saw that, which drove profit. And again, I'm not always think that way today.
No. Here's a question. And I am not familiar with this. Thank you. It said, did anyone have a Grants store where they lived? I'm not familiar with Grants.
I'm not either.
Hmm. Another rabbit hole for me to wander down. Uh,
Yeah.
Carl, I gotta thank you for taking time from your schedule this morning, and more importantly, I want to thank you for having that well-honed Don Quixote sense of jousting at windmills. I am so glad that you're taking this on. This, and it's obvious you have a real passion for this, so I think you're going to succeed.
I
Uh,
years a way to help small businesses, and uh, I started a couple of startups that were aimed at giving exposure to small businesses, but it didn't work because it required small businesses to do a lot of work. And I thought this isn't the way to go. We need a better way to reward people and get businesses help. And so this is my third iteration. So it better work. So but yeah, we're excited about the prospect and just the impact we could have, on local communities. So uh, we're anxious to see where this goes.
well, the third time is the charm. Henry Ford found that out. He had two automobile companies before the Ford Motor Company that went belly up. Uh, so the third time's the charm.
We're hoping, but I do appreciate what you do and having me on the show. It was quite the pleasure. I mean, I love talking about our mission and where we've been and where we're going, and so thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's a team effort. I try and have. It's not about me. This is the whole idea behind this. Everything I do is sharing America's story, providing a bit of inspiration and inspiration for road trips by telling people where to go, but interesting people, inspiring people such as yourself, encouraging people to look at things a tad bit different. Gentleman says that Grant's was based in Syracuse. It was an upscale Woolworths with dining and shopping. Hmm. Thank you. I was not aware of that at all. I wonder if that was just like a store in the Northeast. Well, we'll have to look into that.
I'm not familiar with it.
I have a lot of ideas I'll share with you on an email and possible phone call a little bit later. And I've got a community in mind that we might be able to make into a poster child for what S&H can do. So I got an idea. But of course, ideas are 10 cents a pound. Doing something with them, that's the challenge.
Oh, let's work through them and see what we can pull off.
Carl, again, I want to thank you very much for taking time this morning. This has really piqued my interest and got me excited. And gosh, now my head's just spinning, thinking of the possibilities and the ideas. And I want to thank you too for bringing back a childhood memory that it just, gosh, I had literally almost forgotten the taste of those stamps until you brought it up.
I've lost that taste on my tongue, so I haven't forgotten.
Oh my gosh. Ah,
Our
my
people,
gosh, that was fun.
our people used a sponge,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that too. I had there was my grandmother had a little glass jar with a roller type sponge on the end of it that she would use for stamps and envelopes, and I'd forgotten about that too. Thank you, Margaret. Yes. Margaret up there in East Lansing, she's with Motor Cities and the R.E. Olds Museum in East Lansing. We've got quite a few good folks here. Denny Gibson, he's always he's got some great books out, and road trip books memory. In fact, he just sent me his newest one, Two More Old Highways Across America, National Old Trails Road and the Pikes Peak Ocean to Ocean Highway. So this has been fun. Next week we're going to have a little something different too. I don't know if anybody remembers the old, and I mean old, music boxes where they had the perforated metal wheel inside, and the little forks as you cranked it, and the wheel turned like a phonograph player. It would play different tunes. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Well, these fellas next week, Chris Hill and Pete Thompson, have started a company, and they're doing this with pavement. That if you drive at a certain speed over a certain section of highway, it'll play a tune.
I've heard of it.
And they've got this bright idea. They want to do it all along Route 66 in all 8 states for the centennial. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. I'm sure that's going to be different.
That sounds great.
And the week after that, speaking of technology and AI, I'm going to be on the 22nd. We will have a program, but I'm going to be in Tulsa at the AAA Route 66 Road Fest. So this old dog is learning new tricks, and I've been tinkering with AI, and I've created an entire program with virtual co-host for the 22nd. That should be kind of entertaining for everyone. And then on the 29th, we're going to have a program that blurs the line between past, present, and future. We're going to be talking with Tasha O'Neill of the Historic Electric Vehicle Foundation. We're going to be talking about the EV museum that they're building and putting together along Route 66 in Kingman, Arizona. And a couple of things are going to be surprising to people with this program. One is that there's an EV museum and that there's something to put in it. But electric vehicles have quite a history. And speaking of 1896, one of the first people struck and killed by an automobile in the United States was just a couple years later, 1898, a fellow named Bliss. He was struck and killed by an electric taxi cab in New York City. How's that for a bit of fill your head with useless trivia kind of thing? Before we wrap this up, does anyone have questions for Carl? Anything they want to share this morning? Carl, are you on the road or do you live in Utah full time now?
We're just here temporarily. We're from the Boston area, and mentioned we've been traversing the country, and we've settled here in southern Utah for a bit, helping my wife's parents out. They're both 89 years old, so we're them a sport, and so we've got our RV here, and we're anxious to get back on the road.
Do you have a route picked out back for your return journey?
Nope, we're just free forming it, wherever the wind takes us. But we hit some Route 66 destinations, on our trip, our first couple trips, and but I'd love to start, in Santa Monica and head out to Chicago and just find everything.
Well, if you find yourself in Kingman, let me know. I'll sure buy a coffee or a cold beer, and I could introduce you to a few folks that, like yourself, are finding innovative ways to link the past with the present and the future. And even though it's not Route 66, one more that since you're heading home for Boston, US 6. I'll put that one in your ear too.
Okay.
Are you
Yeah.
familiar with US 6?
No.
It's kind of the forgotten cousin of Route 66. Originally, it's one of the original highways, and it was extended. And at one point, by the late 30s, it was the longest highway in the United States, and it's the only U.S. highway that ran north and south and east and west. The eastern terminus is at Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and the western terminus was at Long Beach, California. And then they truncated it to Bishop, California. Uh, but it's kind of an interesting highway and kind of obscure. But well, it heads your direction all the way out there to Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
I'll have to check that out.
Well, my friends, I want to thank everybody for doing this morning. And Carl, keep up the good work. And anything I can do to help, please holler. The worst that'll happen when you ask for help is I'll laugh and say, well, that ain't happening. But I'll sure jump in where I can.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, I appreciate being on your show. It was great. I love talking about what we're doing. And, hopefully your listeners found some value in it. And let's go.
Sounds good. I'll get this published this afternoon and have this up on Spotify and other programs. If you're a website designer, I offer the code. If you want an embedded player for our archive programs, please let me know. We currently have the program on the B.news, which is the largest tri-state media network in the Colorado River Valley. The Kingman Tours project from Kingman Main Street. There's an embedded player there, as well as on the Jim Hinckley's America website, and a few others. Just trying to get out the word and inspire road trips and share America's story.
I'd like to do, Jim, if you're up for it, and agree, we can create a landing page on mygreenstamps.com and put that embedded player there and try to get the word out for you.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's discuss that. We'll put together a reciprocal arrangement, and yeah, let's do this.
Exciting.
My friends, until we meet again, I will bid everyone adios, and we'll send you on your way with a little bit of road trip inspiring music from our friends Joe and Woody and the boys of the Road Crew, roadcrew66.com. Great road trip inspiring music or theme song for your road trip. And well, if you're out there on the road and you don't want the magic to end at the end of the day, well, there's always the Roadrunner Lodge Motel in Tucumcari, New Mexico, and Cactus Inn Motel in McLean, Texas, and of course the iconic Wagon Wheel Motel in Cuba, Missouri. And if you're like Carl and you're traveling by RV, I got one special place for you. Enchanted Trails Trading Post and RV Park at the top of 9 Mile Hill along Route 66, just outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is a real treat. I'll be real quick, but I'll share this with you. Vicki Ashcraft, the owner, she is the head of the New Mexico Route 66 Alliance, building a network of Route 66 communities, and she's the president of the Route 66 Association of New Mexico. This is a full-service modern RV park, but Vicki has a passion for vintage travel trailers and Hudson automobiles. So she has created a nice outdoor museum of renovated trailers that you can explore with a few Hudsons attached. And she's also built the world's largest Christmas tree that is built from hubcaps. And the trading post itself is now the RV headquarters, gift shop, laundromat, is actually an authentic 1940s trading post. And it's kind of an interesting story. The trading post was along Route 66, and when they realigned the highway, the trading post kind of got left in a bad position. So the owners jacked up the trading post and put it on the other side of the highway. So if you get a chance and you're in Albuquerque, give Vicky a holler. US 20 is currently the longest US highway, eastern terminus in Boston. Well, Denny, thank you. And, 1976 Travelette TT travel trailer. Very good. Yeah, she probably would. She's got quite a display of travel trailers, all different sizes. And for a while, she was renting the trailers, but the maintenance became a little too much. And she had a real interesting 1940s travel trailer. I don't remember the brand, but that thing was so small you had to go outside to change your mind. And if my wife sat next to me on the couch, she knew how much change I had in my pocket. It was small. My friends, I will bid you adios. And, take care, my friends. We'll do this again next week.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.